Hello and warm greetings. Welcome to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, where we would try to comprehensively analyze 7 articles in 3 different sections along with a daily practice question. In the analysis part, we'll first talk about the increasing instances of urban fire tragedies across the country, the associated causes, and the way forward. Then, in the second article, we'll have a discussion regarding the draft notification of ecologically sensitive areas across the Western Ghats, the associated challenges, and the way forward. Then, in the mains value edition, we'll talk about the report, The Status of Policing in India, very important for GS2 and ethics. Then, in the prelims pointers, we'll again talk about 4 important topics for the upcoming prelims of 2027. So, stay tuned. Coming to the very first topic of today's discussion, this is about cities becoming death traps. As the pace of urbanization is increasing, what we are observing is an even increasing pace of the instances of the urban fire tragedies across the country. Let's talk about the recent fire incident which occurred in Malvinagar. So many innocent lives were lost. Or let's talk about the fire which erupted in a Goa nightclub. More than 25 innocent people lost their lives. And what is really saddening is that almost all of them were the migrant workers from the states of Bihar and Jharkhand. So this is a real public safety issue. We have a particular editorial which has been published in The Hindu by former IPS officer Mr. Yashovardhan Azad, where he argues that it's not because of the absence of laws. We have laws in place, we have rules in place, but it's because of the deficit in governance. It's because of the issues with respect to the enforcement of those laws and rules. It's because of the issues with respect to the accountability. It's because of the lack of institutional coordination, the corruption involved at the local level. So it is primarily because of the human negligence that these fire incidents are occurring. In fact, even in UP, we have had instances of fire in the hospitals. Hospitals are supposed to be the place where people basically go to secure their good health. But over there also, many of the instances of fire have occurred, and many innocent children, infants, have lost their lives. So this is a real public safety issue. Urban neglect, political apathy, and corruption continue to claim the lives across the country. Very, very important topic from the perspective of GS2, local governance, public health, GS3, disaster management. Now, this is basically the present status. One more thing I would like to elaborate on this particular part. I have been encountered with a particular question that how to basically approach the introduction with respect to the answers. Introduction can be a definition based. In this particular topic, you should give the context. For example, we are witnessing rising instances of fire, and these are the examples. So do mention these examples in the introduction. I hope it is clear. In Lucknow, in June 2026, 15 people died in an under construction building. A fire erupted in an under construction building, and it claimed the life of almost 15 people. Then in Delhi, in Malvinagar, fire in an illegally modified building. Then we had the case of Bhiwadi in Rajasthan. Again, illegal firecracker unit claimed the life of many of the peoples. The same thing happened in Tamil Nadu. So what you'll have to understand is that there is the lack of enforcement. There is no proper coordination. Rules are being flouted. Especially, see what, again, we have Article 243W, which talks about the 12th schedule. I hope you must be aware of that. Which talks about the powers, responsibility of the municipal bodies. Now, these functions with respect to the fire prevention, at most of the places, they are delegated to the municipal corporations, the municipal bodies. But they are not having proper resources. There is corruption involved. There is illegal nexus between the real estate agents, the construction developers, the local officers, the bureaucrats, and the fire department. So they get the clearances without even proper scrutiny. People are having the clearances, the fire certificates. And because of it, these instances are again and again occurring. And this is an alarming trend. It's a very serious thing. Why? Because almost 13,000 to 15,000 fire-related deaths are being reported annually. And understand that according to the NCRB, in the year 2022, the number was something around 7,000. Can you see an increase? So the number of reportings are also increasing, 100%. But the number of cases of fire instances are also increasing. And we'll look into the causative factors. What are the primary reasons responsible for it? So it's a very serious public health issue, right? And Delhi alone, in the very first quarter of this particular year, it reported almost 39 fire deaths. So very serious incident, right? And this is being aggravated. These fire instances are being aggravated. इनकी intensity बढ़ रही है. Why? Because of the intense heat waves. So we are having the anthropogenic climate change, the human-induced climate change, and because of that, the average temperature is increasing. And that acts as a kind of a catalyst as far as these fires are concerned. You must have heard about the explosions which have taken place as far as the compressors of the ACs are concerned. We have, important, use this in your answer, HVAC, heating, ventilation and air conditioning, HVAC load. So we have, especially at the commercial places, we have big ACs and ventilation machines, and they are constantly running. And during the times of the summers, the intense heat, they get heated quickly. And then there are cases of the bursting of the compressors, and that has led to these fire instances at many of the places, right? What are the major issues and challenges? The very first is the illegal urban development. See, first of all, we have most of the constructions in the urban places in the country, still they are illegal. You go to places like Malvinagar, they are illegal constructions. Because of it, what happens is that there is an utter competition among the people. There is no space for the commutation of people, for the movement of vehicles. For example, I'll tell you, there is one particular setback rule. Setback rule says that if you have this particular parcel of land, you cannot construct the building from the edges. You'll have to leave certain space. But setback rule is not followed. We have an open flouting. There is one more rule which says that every building, we have the National Building Code, which states are adhered to, mandate with respect to the construction of buildings, which says, the National Building Code says, one of the rules says that there has to be 2 staircases in every commercial building. At many of the places, we just have one, and that too very narrow staircases. In an event of fire, what happens is people don't, and let's suppose if the fire occurs near that staircase, then people don't have an access to go outside, and they're trapped inside the rooms or the buildings. Got it? Unauthorized commercial activities in residential areas. Very important point. You must have seen, go to the interiors of Delhi. What you'll observe is that there are very narrow lanes in residential areas where people reside. We have the basements. We have the space under the staircases, the stairwells, where there are small factories, and they're using flammable materials, gas cylinders, any type of factory, it can be metallurgy or anything. And those all are illegal, not authorized. So whenever there can be an instance of the burst of the cylinder, there can be an instance of, let's say, a fire occurring because of that flammable material which is being used in the manufacturing process. Got it? Illegal constructions violating the building bylaws. So we have the National Building Code, and it is being openly flouted. No one is adhering to that, right? Absence of emergency exits and fire safety systems. There are no emergency exits, except in some well-off places, the malls. You will not find these emergency exits. There is one more thing which you'll have to understand. We have at many places, especially in urban areas, we have the slums, the squatter settlements. As soon as the election comes, because of the populism, the populist tendencies, the netas come, the incumbent government, the leaders go and say that we will legalize all your habitations. Please understand that slums are the areas where fires can spread very quickly, where the diseases can spread very quickly, because of lack of sanitation, lack of hygiene, because of lack of other amenities. So this is what you'll have to understand. There is political angle also which is involved. Political patronage. कि भाई हमारी सरकार अगर आ गई, if you give vote to us, then what we'll do is we'll legalize all your settlements. Got it? Weak enforcement. Fire safety norms exist, but compliance is poor. Because you get the certificate by paying some bribes. The inspectors hardly come to verify the buildings. So that is a very serious issue. Corruption is involved. Illegal nexus between the local officers, the fire departments, the real estate mafias. Illegal structures continue despite the demolition notices. Notices are there, but again, there is no enforcement. That's what the author is talking about. There is lack of enforcement. Then we have anti-encroachment drives. See, ideally, the anti-encroachment drives need to be periodic, that once in 6 months or once in 8 months. But these only happen, and we have many of these officers of the anti-encroachment who want to become famous on the Instagram. So rather than for the public cause, they are doing these anti-encroachment drives for the sake of popularity. Most of the bureaucrats are doing it these days. They're more famous than many celebrities in the country. So what you'll have to understand is that these एंटी एनक्रोचमेंट ड्राइव्स. एनक्रोचमेंट मतलब क्या भाई, ये पैसेज है आपका, दिस इज द पैसेज ऑफ द रोड and there is one particular building over here, but still it is taking the space of the road. Encroachment. And therefore ultimately what happens is that the lane becomes very narrow and it's very difficult for the fire prevention services, the fire brigades, to go through that particular lane because of the narrow lanes. See, every time we cannot blame the fire brigade. Even if the fire brigade comes on time, and let's say there is one particular instance of fire which is taking place in the interiors, how would the fire brigade go inside? It's very difficult. Got it? Lacks continuity. Corruption and political patronage. Regulatory violations ignored because of corruptions involved. Because there is an excess involved. You give money, everything would happen. Then we have political interference prevents action. As I told you, that before the elections, these political leaders come and say that we would legalize, give vote to us, and ultimately, see, people have no option now. Then we have culture of impunity encourages repeated violations. See, there have been cases where these owners of these places, for example, in Goa nightclub, these owners were basically detained and then they were released on bail. That is what the issues with the Indian criminal justice system is. Howsoever grave crime a person have done, in most of the cases, a person can get a bail if he or she has good muscle and money power. So there is a kind of a feeling of impunity. जो होगा देख लेंगे. That is, and because of it, there are repeated instances which are occurring, and this is claiming the life of the innocent people, those people who belong to the low socio-economic strata, the poor people. ठीक है? Fragmented urban governance. Especially even in those areas where you have good, robust urban governance in municipal corporations, what you'll have to understand is that there are multiple agencies. There is lack of coordination. For example, we have the municipal corporations, development authorities, jal boards. Then we have the water boards, PWD, fire departments. And there is a confusion because there is no clear jurisdictional line that which particular subject is to be dealt by which particular body. There is an overlap. There's a confusion which is there. And therefore, what ultimately happens is that there is no accountability because of the overlap of functions, overlap of jurisdictions. Got it? Creates an accountability vacuum. Then we have weak urban local bodies. See, we have constitutionalized this through the 74th Constitutional Amendment. But do you think things have changed? Let's talk about Paris or London. Okay. In these places, you have the mayor. In India also, we have the mayor. But over there in cities like Paris and London, the mayor is accountable to the people. He has those powers, enforcement powers. In India, the mayor is just ceremonial. Ultimately, it's the state government which wields the power, which controls the power. So effectively, the state government decides how the municipal governance, how the urban governance of a particular place is to be run. And that creates a gap. Okay? So there is no direct accountability. We have constitutionalized, but there are issues with respect to that. ULBs remain financially and administratively weak. For example, as I told you, we have 243W. We have 18 subjects in 12th schedule. 243W talks about the 12th schedule, and we have 18 subjects with respect to the powers, authority, and responsibility of the urban local bodies. Now, these subjects are to be ideally delegated to the municipal corporations, but states have not done that. States are still exercising the power with respect to these subjects. They're not allowing. Everything is controlled by them. So effectively, these urban local bodies are mere puppets in the hands of the state governments. Effective devolution of power, please use these in your answers. Effective devolution of authority and powers has not taken place in line with the objectives enshrined under 12th schedule. Okay? Responsibility without adequate authority. Responsibility to hai, but authority nahi hai. Then we have reactive rather than preventive governance. Whenever any instance occurs, we will constitute inquiries, we'll do this, we'll do that. What about the robust steps you are taking? Have things really changed as far as the urban governance is concerned? Are you going for a proper scrutiny of different areas in Delhi, let's say? Which of the areas are, they're having the illegal constructions? Because most of them are illegal constructions. And government doesn't have the political will because it knows in the elections people would respond. So that's the issue. Committees are formed, but systemic reforms remain limited. Underutilization of technology. See, we are living in an era where there are emerging technologies in place, blockchain, AI. Why can't we have these technologies in place? India is definitely doing very good as far as technology is concerned. Especially, see, we have spent thousands of crores in smart cities mission, Amrut, JNN, URM. Where the money has gone? You've created 100 smart cities. Why you don't incorporate the AI in that? Look for AI, see, track those places which have a higher probability of having these fire instances. Use technology in place. Use GIS, satellite imagery, drones, AI, digital property databases, and they're not being used effectively, right? What are the key fire safety regulations in India? As I told you, we have the National Building Code. Initially, it was the Bureau of Indian Standards came up with in 1970, came up with the first edition. Third edition came in 2016. It's the primary standard as far as the fire safety is concerned. It has certain provisions in place that has to be basically followed by the state governments, and state governments basically mandate that whatever construction you're doing, you will have to adhere to the guidelines which are enshrined in the National Building Code. Then we have model building bylaws, which says that we need to use the fire resistant materials. This is also one of the very important concerns. Because of the modern architecture and planning and construction, we are going for more of those materials which attract the fire. The wooden pieces or the varnishes or the paints. This particular model building bylaws say that we need to go for these fire resistance, fire retardant materials, more of those, right? For construction, installation of fire alarms and detection systems. State specific, for example, we have the state of Uttar Pradesh, which has come up with the Fire Prevention and Fire Safety Act of 2005. Then we have model building bylaws by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which has given the model rules and regulations which has to be abided by different states. Then scheme for expansion and modernization of fire services in the states. We had the 15th Finance Commission, 15th, which basically gave an award of almost 5,000 crores to different states so that they can really come up with a robust framework for the fire prevention. 15th Finance Commission, okay? And in accordance, the government came up with this particular scheme for the expansion and modernization of fire services. Fire Safety Week, we have the Union Health Ministry comes up Fire Safety Week from 21st to 25th of April for the awareness. Then we have the NDMA guidelines for schools, for homes, for hospitals, for commercial establishments, that you need to abide by these many things. Got it? What should be the way forward? We should strengthen the urban governance in real sense. कहते ना वो, whenever we talk about the urban local bodies or the local bodies in general, the funds, functions and functionaries, that has to be effectively devolved. Because again, they have the responsibility but no authority. Decisions are being taken at the capital centers, in the capitals, far off from the urban bodies. Okay. Empower the urban local bodies in line with the very objective, the principles of 74th Amendment. And again, here we can talk about the 12th schedule. The subjects which I mentioned, 18 subjects which I mentioned in the 12th schedule should be devolved to the municipal bodies. Then we have clearly defined the institutional responsibilities. We have multiple institutions. Abhi to SPVs bhi hain, special purpose vehicles. They are having a lot of power and authority. So there are multiple agencies in place. Please designate one particular body as the body in charge or which has a jurisdiction with respect to a particular thing, so that it can be held accountable whenever any instance occurs. Then we have ensure the strict enforcement, mandatory public fire safety audits and drills. This is also very important. Whenever we talk about the fire drills, people laugh. People are not serious about fire drills. That's really important. Fire safety audits need to be conducted by the respective departments. Is the building having enough resources, or is a building in a capacity to control fire? Then we have zero tolerance for illegal constructions, accountability of officials for regularity failures. So accountability needs to be fixed. The officers who are responsible need to be disciplined if any of these instances occurs. Technology-based monitoring, GIS mapping of illegal structures, AI-based compliance monitoring, digital property records and real-time dashboards. For example, we can have the scanning of these urban places by the drones. And then we can come to the conclusion that which place is more susceptible to these fires. And then according to a particular place, we can have the regulatory framework in place. Then professional urban management, independent urban planning and fire safety authorities. See, again, we are having the master plans with us. But the same thing comes. These urban local bodies, they do not have the enforcement authorities. They may be held responsible for whatever wrong goes, but they're not having the powers, right? And also they're underfunded. They don't have their own source revenue. Own source revenue is missing. So they are primarily dependent on the funding by the state governments. Got it? Then regular structural and safety inspections, improve the disaster preparedness, fire safety awareness, the drills, the mock drills, emergency evacuation plans, mock drills in schools, hospitals and commercial buildings, governance reforms, fixed responsibility for negligence. Whenever any instance occurs, and it has been found that yes, these licenses were given in exchange for bribe without proper inspections, then the officers must be held accountable. Okay? Performance-based evaluation of civic authorities, transparent citizen grievance systems. Very, very important. There has to be an effective grievance redressal mechanism in place. Got it? And these are some of the best practices. In Singapore, for instance, strict building code enforcement and digital compliance. Over there, there are huge penalties in place. The people don't even dare to go for any kind of construction which is illegal, which is not according to the prescribed framework, because the penalties are too much. Then let's say we have Tokyo, regular mandatory fire drills and earthquake fire resilient buildings, especially in a country like Japan, which is prone to earthquakes. We hardly come across these instances of fires because they have a very resilient infrastructure in place and a very accountable system. The enforcement is very strong. Seoul in Korea, smart GIS based urban management. In India also we have Surat, for example, GIS enabled municipal governance, primarily in the context of smart city mission and disaster resilience. In Indore, integrated command and control center for urban management. Ahmedabad, town planning schemes for planned urban development. So these can be mentioned as an ancillary point, that these are the best practices which can be incorporated. So please understand, see, it's not because of the absence of laws or absence of rules. There are multiple reasons involved. Lack of political will, lack of institutional coordination, lack of, let's say, there is a governance deficit which is there, lack of accountability. Okay, so these must be looked into because this is becoming a real menace and it has claimed the life of many innocent people. Got it? Let's have a mains practice question. I've given a 10 marker, right? And so pleasant, so good to see that so many of you are writing answers. Really pleased. Let's have this particular question. Despite having adequate laws and building regulations in place, urban fire accidents continue to claim lives in India. Analyze the reasons and suggest institutional reforms to improve the urban safety. 10 marks, 150 words, do write because that's the only way to get your name in the final list. And yes, if you're liking the initiative, do not forget to press the like button and also let us know in the comments. Let's go to the next topic. Coming to the next topic, here is the notification of a draft with respect to the ecologically sensitive areas in the Western Ghats. Now, what you'll have to understand is that this is the 7th notification, the 7th draft notification, and it has been called for public consultation. Why it is 7th? Because there has been no final agreement among the states. See, we have the Western Ghats and we have these states along the Western Ghats. We have Gujarat, we have Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So initially we had the Madhav Gadgil committee report which said that we need to basically protect most of the Western Ghats. Many of the states responded, they were not in agreement with that because they said that that would basically hamper the tourism and the commercial activities, and therefore they were not in that particular frame of things as far as Madhav Gadgil committee is concerned. Then we had the Kasturi Rangan committee which basically reduced that particular area, said that we can keep it to almost 37% of the total areas of Western Ghats as the ecologically sensitive areas. Primarily, it means that in an ecologically sensitive area, there would not be any particular activity which basically degrades the environment, right? No commercial activity would be allowed in that particular region. Therefore, many of the states have had disagreements, and this is the 7th notification. The 6th notification already lapsed because there was no consensus, right? And the government has called for public consultations. We'll see what this particular notification is all about, why these, ESA or ecologically sensitive areas are really important and what should be the way forward. Move comes amid the continuing differences with 6 states over the areas to be included in the ESA. Very, very important part of GS3 environment. So as I told you, the Union Ministry for Environment, Forest and Climate Change has reissued the draft notification 7th time since 2014 because till now we haven't been able to get that particular consensus among the states कि भाई हाँ ये होना चाहिए ESA. This should be the ESA as far as the Western Ghats is concerned. Some of the states have agreed, some have not. So there is no consensus. Proposing an ecologically sensitive area in the Western Ghats after the previous notification lapsed without finalization. Got it? Because the states couldn't agree on that and therefore it lapsed. What is the issue and where do we stand? This particular notification, it maintains the status quo which was there in the last notification. Proposed ecologically sensitive area of almost 56,000 kilometers, 56,825 square kilometers, unchanged from the previous draft. Final notification yet to be issued due to disagreement with these states. So once the consensus is reached, then the final notification would be issued. Background kya hai? We had the Gadgil committee in 2011, which was basically, the formal name of the committee was Western Ghats Ecology Expert Panel, headed by Professor Madhav Gadgil. What the committee said was that the entire stretch of the Western Ghats, it's ecologically very fragile and it sustains a lot of population, flora, fauna. So everything of it must be kept isolated. It must not be infringed upon. Okay. Entire Western Ghats to the tune of almost 1,29,037 square kilometers ecologically to be designated as ecologically sensitive area. Got it? And it divided the region into various components as ecologically sensitive zone 1, 2, 3. Strong restrictions were imposed as far as the mining in the region was concerned and environmentally destructive activities. Any commercial activity which is having a kind of a degradation, an impact of degradation on the environment would be prohibited. Got it? Decentralized decision making involving the Gram Sabhas. This was also the point of contention, that this particular committee gave the power to the Gram Sabha to decide whether a particular project should be approved or not. See, understand, the state governments do not, and we discussed in the last particular article, the state governments do not really want that their power should be devolved. Effectively, if they would have wanted it, things would have changed, but things are not changed. Why? Because they don't want the power to be exercised by the Gram Sabhas. The power still lies with the political masters and the bureaucrats. And this was one of the contentious points. Okay? And therefore the states could not agree. Then we had the 2013 Kasturi Rangan Committee, which was known as the High Level Working Group, chaired by Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan. Recommendations, it reduced the area to almost 37% of Western Ghats, almost to the tune of 59,940, you can say 60,000 kilometers, 60,000 square kilometers. Focus protection mainly on the natural landscape. So it was not concerned with the entire stretch of Western Ghats. It was only concerned, it said that these natural landscapes need to be protected while excluding most of the human settlements and plantations, so that there is a balance. See, we should not have an extreme point of view. Development is also important. There are concerns with respect to tourism. These states earn a lot of revenue as far as the plantations are concerned. Coffee plantation, tea plantation, tourism is concerned. So good amount of revenue comes from these activities. And then there is also the need for the environment protection. So there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance as far as this particular aspect is concerned. We cannot have on one side the environment matters, on the other side the development matters. So there has to be a balance. Got it? Balance conservation with development. Now this is important. Look at this. So we have these states, the stretch, the Western Ghats. Maharashtra, ESA is in the Western Ghats region of Maharashtra. So it is in Maharashtra and then we have in Goa. The Western Ghats are among the world's 8 hottest biodiversity hotspots and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. They are home to hundreds of unique plant and animal species. They have some of the endemic species and act as the water tower of the peninsular India. Most of the rivers which are there in the peninsular region, they have their origin in the Western Ghats. And therefore, it also secures the water security of the entire region, of the entire peninsula. So therefore, has to be protected. Major rivers including the Krishna, Godavari, Kaveri, Mandovi, Periyar and Sharavati originate here. Protecting the region is crucial for biodiversity, forest and water security. Then what happened? Kerala was not in line with the recommendations of this particular committee, Kasturi Rangan committee, and therefore it modified its ecologically sensitive area from around 13,000 kilometers to that of 9,993 square kilometers. So see, what you'll have to understand is again the same concern. States have their own concern. They do not want to compromise on the commercial aspects, on the tourism, on the plantations. Got it? Why has the notification been delayed for more than a decade? Opposition from the states. We have many of the states which say that these restrictions would hurt the farmers and the plantation, coffee plantation, tea plantation. Infrastructure development will slow down because if will not allow the construction of any of these commercial, these places or any of the projects, what would happen is that there would be less of investment. Nothing would take place. There would not be tourism. People would not travel to these areas, and therefore the revenues would suffer with respect to these states. Mining revenues will decline. Tourism and the local livelihoods may suffer. Village boundaries proposed by the center are disputed. So that is a concern. We have the local concerns also. People want to have their own livelihood options. But again, that can have an effect on the ecological stability of the Western Ghats. According to the officials, Gujarat, Goa and Maharashtra are closest to an agreement. Gujarat has already given its final consent. Maharashtra's proposal is being finalized. Goa has sought exclusion of 21 villages. The biggest disagreement remained with Karnataka, which has formally rejected the Kasturi Rangan report in 2024. Kerala, which wants the ESA area to be reduced further, especially in the parts of Idukki and Wayanad district. So most of the contentions are with respect to the states of Karnataka and Kerala. Rest other states are almost on the point of agreement. Got it? Difficulty in balancing the ecology and development. How to protect biodiversity without adversely affecting the livelihoods of millions living in the Western Ghats. So there has to be a balance, as I told you. Balance between the environmental conservation and the developmental needs. Administrative challenges, boundary demarcation disputes, repeated consultations. Because of it, what happens is every state, every time, comes up with its own demand. So consensus is very difficult to achieve. Political resistance, multiple ministries and states involved. We have different departments, different states department. So there is a kind of a lack of coordination among various ministries and departments. Why the Western Ghats are so important? Let's look into that. What is the importance of Western Ghats? The very first is global biodiversity hotspot. It's one of the 36 biodiversity hotspots around the world, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Then water security, as I told you. Most of the rivers in the peninsular region, they originate in Western Ghats. So if there would be any degradation with respect to the ecological fragility, the ecology of Western Ghats, that would have a direct impact on the water being carried by these rivers, be it Godavari, be it Krishna, Kaveri, Tungabhadra, Periyar. And it supports the need of almost 25 crore people, 250 million people. Climate regulator influences the southwest monsoon. You must have seen these places, whenever you have the incoming of the monsoon, then these places are lush green, and that is what attracts people. That's what, drives the tourism in these areas. Got it? Carbon sink. So these are the areas which have a huge potential to absorb the carbon dioxide. Carbon sequestration, right? Prevents soil erosion. Now this is also very important. Once you have good ecology in place, once you have good density of plants, it holds the soil together and it prevents the erosion. Got it? But once we have more of the degradation of the plants, once plants are rooted for any commercial activity, there are instances of floods. We have observed, we have seen what happened in Kerala, because there was a kind of an exploitative commercial activity which was being carried out in that particular region. Construction of dams, or construction of any commercial project. And that leads to loosening of the soil. And therefore, we have these cases of floods and landslides and avalanches. Controls the floods. Biodiversity, over 7,400 species of flowering plants, more than 500 bird species, around 330 globally threatened species are there in Western Ghats. Major concerns if production is delayed, ecological. So if we will not go with this particular ESA, if we'll tend to delay it, what would happen is that we would witness a natural degradation or anthropogenic degradation, not natural, human-induced degradation of these places with respect to deforestation, with respect to habitat fragmentation. Many of the places, see, understand, let's say this is a particular area and it is having a very good, unique mix of different species of plants and animals. Let's say a particular rail project is now going or a highway is being constructed. This would lead to a fragmentation of the habitat. The animals would find it difficult to basically cross from region A to region B. And that has a direct effect on the population, on the genetic diversity, on the biodiversity of that particular region. Then we have the biodiversity loss. Then we have the wildlife conflicts, the human-wildlife conflict. Rising instances of the killings of the humans by the wild elephants or the tigers, because see, the animals have their own region. But we are increasing the plantation, we are increasing the areas for agriculture, for the other production, for the commercial activities, and therefore it is leading to more of interactions between these wild animals and humans, and therefore more of cases of the human-wildlife conflict. Okay. Disaster risk. Unscientific development increases the landslides. I already told you. If we have good density of plants in place, the soil would be retained. But if plants are uprooted, the soil would become loose, and therefore there would be more of floods. Flash floods, soil erosion. We had the Kerala floods, Wayanad landslides in 2019 and 24. Climate change, reduced carbon sequestration. We are witnessing increasing emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, and because of it, if we don't have proper sequestration mechanism, proper green belts in place, what would ultimately happen is that there would be an increasing temperatures, average temperatures would increase, because we don't have the proportionate green sources to absorb the carbon dioxide, the excess carbon dioxide. Got it? Greater vulnerability to extreme weather events, EWE, very important word, keyword. Unsustainable mining, forest degradation, river pollution. We have in many of the places, what is happening is that these rivers which pass through these region of Western Ghats, it's carrying very pure water, but because of the mining activities, what is happening is that very heavy metals are being leached into the water, and that is having an effect on the public health of the adjoining areas. Okay. Groundwater depletion. What should be the way forward? We need to have a balanced conservation model. We need to protect the ecologically fragile areas while safeguarding the legitimate livelihoods. See, if there is a livelihood which is not having a direct negative impact on the environment, it must be allowed to continue. But those activities which have a direct impact as far as the environmental fragility is concerned, environmental stability is concerned, those must be prohibited. Scientific mapping. There should not be political contestations among different states or including the center. We need to have a very scientific based approach. We can use the GIS, we can use the remote sensing, the satellite imageries of the last few decades, and see what all destructions have taken place and what are the causative factors, the reasons responsible. Ground verification for accurate ESA boundaries, cooperative federalism, greater consultation with the states, local bodies and communities, especially the communities. What Madhav Gadgil report said. We need to incorporate the views of Gram Sabha. That's the most important foundation of democratic decentralization. So over there, if the public agrees at the grassroots level, then we should go with the project, otherwise not. Community-based conservation, involve the Gram Sabhas and local communities, promote ecotourism, very important, ecotourism. There has to be a limit on the number of people which can visit these areas. Voucher-based scheme we can develop. For example, you already know what is the condition. We discussed in the topic of tourism a few days before. What is the condition of Shimla and all these places? So it has to be in line with the carrying capacity. Har jagah ki everything has a carrying capacity. Every place has a carrying capacity. So it should be in line with the carrying capacity of that particular place. And sustainable livelihoods. Differential regulation. Focus restrictions on highly fragile ecosystems instead of blanket bans. This is also very important. You cannot have a one-size-fits-all approach. You cannot have one particular approach for entire region. There can be areas, as what the Madhav Gadgil committee said, that there has to be a focus with respect to this particular fragmentation or this particular segmentation, ESZ1, ESZ2, ESZ3, according to the fragility of that particular region, according to the ecological importance of that particular region. Got it? Strong monitoring, satellite monitoring for illegal mining, independent ecological audits, very important. So there has to be ecological audit by independent agencies. And on that basis, we can come up with the final agreement. Strict compliance mechanisms. So this must be adhered to. See, understand, Western Ghats are one of the most important natural regions, not just of India, but of the world. So we need to protect it. But there has to be a balance between conservation and development. We can have an approach where there is a kind of a segmentation in terms of ESZ1, ESZ2, ESZ3 on the basis of the fragility of that particular ecosystem. There should not be a blanket ban. Got it? Let's have a means practice question. Again, a 10 marker. Very easy to write. Do write it. Quite an important topic. The prolonged delay in notifying the ecologically sensitive area in the Western Ghats reflects the challenge of balancing the environmental conservation with developmental aspirations. Discuss. 10 markers, 150 words, do write the answer. Let's go to the mains value addition. Coming to the mains value addition, we have a report known as the status of policing in India of 2025. Now, why this becomes important, especially in the context of the recent protests we had and the high-handedness of the police which was observed. There were allegations that police used undue force on the protesters, and because of it, many of them, there was a usage of the pellet guns, there was use of coercive actions. Many of them have been injured. Many youngsters have been injured. In that context, we have this, and many of the police officers were also injured because there was a retaliation from the crowd. So we're not going into the debate who was right and who was wrong, but this is particular report. And if you have a question with respect to the criminal justice system or policing in India, you can give the reference of 1 or 2 data points. Again, I've always emphasized there should not be a bombardment of data. Whatever argument you're writing, you should just give 1 or 2 data points with respect to that. It's not the data which fetches you marks. It's the argument supported by data which fetches you marks. Got it? The status of policing in India reports offers glimpses into the institutional attitude of the police in the country and the need for reforms. The chart below shows the responses of the police personnel. So these are the responses of the police personnel themselves. Got it? Not the general population, the police personnel. Surveyed for the report for the questions mentioned in the respective chart. Let's go to chart 1, which says, to properly fulfill the responsibilities, police should be allowed to use force without any fear of punishment. And we have more than 70% of the personnel agreed that police should be allowed to use force without fear of punishment in order to properly discharge their responsibilities. So, that is what the data is all about. Next, we have, should the police be allowed to arrest and detain suspects without court investigation? So, should the police have the power to detain anyone? And we're not including the court procedures and others. It shows we have almost 28% strongly agree. We have 41% who agree, somewhat agree. It shows a tendency to use police discretion while circumventing legal and constitutional safeguards. This data is important. Second one can be used. So 28 plus 41. They basically agree on this particular part. And this is what the perception of the police personnel is all about. Next. Again, this is a survey. We cannot journalize it. But this is what the Hindu data says. Got it? Chart 3 says the importance of using tough methods to create fear. Importance of using tough methods. It is very important according to 20%. It's somewhat important according to 35%. So almost more than 50%. More than 50% say that tough measures are important. So you can just write more than 50% police personnel feel that. What it tells you, that there is a need for greater sensitization in the police training. Again, I'm repeating. For example, once many of you would be selected in the Indian Police Service, you'll have the training in the NPA. And over there, you'll be taught the greater sensitization towards the people. You need to be sensitized. And if this is the kind of outlook we have, then obviously we'll not take into consideration the issues of the people. Okay? Police personnel's views on the usefulness of various crime control measures. Increasing the presence of beat police or patrolling or the number of police stations, very useful, say 64%. So this is, I don't think, very important, but yes, the chart 2 and chart 3 are quite important. They can be used as far as your data is concerned. Your data in the answers is concerned. Civilians injured during riots due to police firing and lathi charge as per NCRB. So we have in 2020, we have 76, 21, 40. Now we don't have the data for, obviously for this year, the number would be in fact higher than that, what the average numbers were. So this is what you can see. Whenever you have a question with respect to CJS, criminal justice system, specifically with respect to the police reforms, you can mention this particular data. Let's go to the prelims pointers. Coming to the prelims pointer section, we have the very first topic which talks about a particular initiative known as the Tigers Outside Tiger Reserves Initiative. See, India has a very strong, very robust protection framework for the tigers, starting from the Project Tiger to that of the NTCA, National Tiger Conservation Authority. We have a very good, robust regime in place. But what we'll have to also factor in is an aspect that almost 35% to 40% of the tigers in India, they are actually outside, they're living outside the tiger reserve. So it becomes very important to basically have a protection regime for these tigers also. And therefore, we have this particular initiative in place, important from the prelims perspective. Let's go through it. India's tiger conservation status. India has remained as a global leader in tiger conservation with almost 3,682 tigers in 2022, accounting for over 70% of the world's wild tiger population. Can you just imagine? Over 70% of the world's wild tiger population lives in India. Expansion of protected areas since Project Tiger 73. Tiger reserves have increased from 9 to 58, covering almost 85,000 square kilometers. Almost 2.6% of India's land area. Very important information, can be asked in the prelims. New conservation challenge, around 35 to 40% of the tigers now live outside the tiger reserves, increasing the interactions with humans. And that also sometimes leads to the human-wildlife conflict. Got it. Launch of TOTR, Tiger Outside Tiger Reserve Initiative, aims to conserve tigers and shared landscapes while reducing the human-tiger conflict. It's a pilot-based, initially it was a pilot-based implementation. The program will initially cover 40 forest divisions across 9 states. Based on all India tiger estimation of 2022 figures, it has a 2-pillar strategy. First is conflict mitigation through rapid response, surveillance and rescue infrastructure. Conflict with respect to the human-wildlife conflict. Long-term coexistence, humans and the animals, through community participation, awareness and timely compensation. Technology-driven conservation, use of camera traps, drones, GPS tracking and AI for monitoring and early warning. Governance focus, success depends not only on technology, but also on trained forest personnel, institutional capacity and community trust. So we have different stakeholders over here. It's not just the forest department, it's also the local community. It's also the scientists, the scientific interventions which we have. So there has to be a robust community interaction, participation. Important reports and institutions, NTCA, it's a statutory body based on the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. All India tiger estimation conducted every 4 years, regarded as the world's largest camera trap wildlife survey. Global Tiger Forum, India is a founding member, the only intergovernmental body dedicated to tiger conservation. India hosts almost 70% of the world's wild tiger population. Global Tiger Recovery Program, TX2, aimed to double the global tiger numbers by 2022. India achieved this target ahead of the schedule. Project Tiger launched in 1973 with 9 tiger reserves. Today, India has almost 58 tiger reserves. Tiger landscape, tigers have been recorded in 212 forest divisions, indicating expansions beyond protected areas. We have, for example, the Panna Tiger Reserve in Madhya Pradesh. We have Sariska, we have Kaziranga. Okay. We have these articles in place. For example, we have Article 48, capital A, which talks about the protection and improvement of the environment. 51, capital A, subclause G, fundamental duty to protect the wildlife and the forests. Wildlife Protection Act of 72, principal legislation for wildlife conservation. We have the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD. We have CITES. Appendix 1, international commercial trade in tigers is prohibited. Okay. Convention on the International Trade in Endangered Species, CITES. Global Tiger Initiative, it was an initiative of the World Bank, including 13 countries, which basically calls for an end to the extinction of tigers, right? Launched in 2008. Global Tiger Initiative, a World Bank-led initiative. Shift from protected area centric conservation to landscape level conservation, and that is the reason we are talking about the Tigers Outside Tiger Reserve Initiative, where we are focusing on the landscape based approach, not the protected areas based approach. Conservation is increasingly based on One Health approach, recognizing the interdependence of wildlife, humans and ecosystems. So this is again very important. This is what we have: the humans, we have the animals, and we have the plants in place. So this is the One Health approach, and a particular concept which is given by the World Health Organization. Got it? We have the wildlife corridors. Kana Pench, Nilgiri, Tarai, Arc landscape are crucial for genetic exchange and reducing the habitat fragmentation. These are the wildlife corridors. Best practice: Maharashtra's AI-enabled early warning system and Karnataka's camera trap network have improved the conflict monitoring in several tiger landscapes. Timely compensation and community participation. Eco-development communities have proven effective in reducing the local hostility towards wildlife conservation. Important topic, can be asked in the prelims. Let's go to the next topic. Now, coming to the next topic, here is a mention of US reviewing the Europe's participation in NATO. See, Trump has been quite, frustrated because of the fact that Europe, what he thinks is president of the US, POTUS. What he thinks is that Europe is not effectively participating in NATO as far as the funding is concerned, and all of the responsibilities flowing to the US. US is basically handling all the expenditures, and therefore there is a kind of a review of NATO which is being taken by the US. Therefore NATO becomes quite important. The foundations of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization were officially laid down on 4th of April 1949 with the signing of North Atlantic Treaty, popularly known as Washington Treaty. So there can be a question in the prelims. It's also basically known as the Washington Treaty. The Washington Treaty or the North Atlantic Treaty forms the basis of NATO. Now this was primarily formed as a response mechanism to the erstwhile USSR. Got it? The communist regimes, as a response to communist regimes, right, where the American and the Western countries, America and the Western countries, Western European countries, they came together and said that we would have a common response mechanism. If anything happens, we would be united. The treaty was signed in Washington, D.C. on 4th of April by 12 founding members. The treaty derives its authority from the Article 51 of the UN Charter, which reaffirms the inherent right of independent states with respect to collective defense. See, there are two aspects. One is collective security. Collective security is more of a positive concept. For example, we have the UN talks about collective security. Collective defense is more about a kind of a negative concept. For example, we have the NATO. For example, we have in residential places where we live, we have the security over there. We don't have defense personnel over there. We say that these are security guards. It's a positive concept. But once we talk about at the borders of the countries, we have the defense personnel, more of negative, right? This says an attack on one particular country. If you have 5 people together, so if one country is attacked, all 5 would come together and respond. That's what the basis of this particular treaty is all about. Collective defense is at the heart of the treaty and is enshrined in Article 5. It commits the members to protect each other and sets a spirit of solidarity within the alliance. The treaty is short, containing only 14 articles, and provide for inbuilt flexibility on all fronts. Despite the changing security environment, the original treaty has never had to be modified, and each ally, the members, has a possibility to implement the text in accordance with its capabilities and circumstances. These are the important countries. These are the members of the NATO. And look at this. Recently, we have had in 2023, Finland, which got the membership of NATO, and Sweden in 2024. So these are the latest country to join the NATO grouping, right? So just keep this in mind because there can be a possible question with respect to NATO. Let's go to the next topic. Coming to the next topic is a mention of amoebic brain infection. Let's go through what this particular infection is all about and how important it is to basically control this particular infection. Kerala's Kasaragod district has reported another case of amoebic meningoencephalitis, amoebic brain infection in an 18-year-old. The source of infection is suspected to have occurred after bathing in a freshwater pond, highlighting the risk associated with stagnant or contaminated water bodies. So like this, you can understand that what is the source of this particular disease. Stagnant or contaminated water bodies can be the source of this particular disease, the microbe. The patient is in critical condition, underlining the disease high fatality rate if not diagnosed and treated early. Immediate public health response: the health department and the police have prohibited bathing in the pond and issued public advisories. Public health concern: though rare, increasing sporadic cases in Kerala necessitate the greater awareness, early diagnosis and preventive measures. What is amoebic meningoencephalitis? A rare but fatal infection of the brain. So it affects the brain and its surrounding membranes, usually caused by Naegleria fowleri. I'm sorry if the pronunciation is wrong. Popularly known as brain-eating amoeba. Got it? So this is an amoeba and which affects the brain and its membranes. It causes primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, PM. This is Naegleria fowleri, a free-living amoeba found in warm freshwater bodies such as ponds, lakes, hot springs, and poorly chlorinated swimming pools. So understand that this particular amoeba, it is primarily found in the stagnant or contaminated water sources. Mode of transmission: infection occurs when contaminated water enters the nose, allowing the amoeba to travel through the olfactory nerve to the brain. It does not spread by drinking contaminated water from person to person. It's not basically being transmitted from the person to person. Symptoms: we have high fever, vomiting, neck stiffness. Fatality rate: now this is very important, more than 95% case fatality rate, making it one of the deadliest infectious disease. Risk factors: swimming or diving in warm or stagnant fresh water, poorly maintained swimming pools, hot climatic conditions favor amoeba growth. We have different methods which can be used as far as diagnosis is concerned. No universally effective treatment. Combination may include, we have different antibiotics, we have the other medicines which can be given. Early diagnosis significantly improves the survival chances. Avoid swimming in warm, stagnant fresh water. Use nose clips or clip the head above the water. Ensure proper chlorination of the swimming pools. Public awareness and surveillance during summer months. Now the value addition is, Naegleria fowleri is a thermophilic, heat-loving, free-living protozoan amoeba. Rising temperatures due to climate change may increase the geographical spread of such waterborne pathogens. Fits under the One Health approach, integrating the human health, environmental health, and the water sanitation. We have the Integrated Disease Surveillance Program, which monitors the outbreaks of the infectious disease, especially at the district level, and we have so that there is a proper surveillance of the disease. National Center for Disease Control provides technical guidance on disease surveillance and outbreaks. Jal Jeevan Mission and Swachh Bharat Mission indirectly strengthens the water hygiene and public health. Got it? Let's go to the next topic. Coming to the last topic of today's discussion, almost 13 Indian seafarers are trapped in a particular port. Can be important. We'll also go through the geography of this particular area. So let's go to the map of Ukraine and see. So we have Ukraine over here, and these are the adjoining countries. We have Russia. Do remember the adjoining countries. We have Belarus, we have Poland, we have Slovakia, we have Hungary, we have Romania, we have Moldova. Do remember the adjoining countries of Ukraine. Got it? Now, these are the important ports. For example, see, first of all, this is the Crimean Peninsula, which was annexed by Russia. Over here, there is one strategic port which gives access to the Mediterranean Sea, which gives access to Russians as far as Mediterranean Sea is concerned, which is Sevastopol. Very, very important, through the Black Sea. And then further, we have the Bosphorus Strait, and then it goes to the Sea of Marmara, and ultimately we have the Mediterranean Sea. Over here, we have the Sea of Azov, and we have the Strait of Kerch over here. Strait of Kerch, so it is between the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea, remember this. And we have over here Bosphorus Strait between the Black Sea and Sea of Marmara. This is Sea of Marmara. Here also we have a particular strait known as Strait of Dardanelles. Got it? So we have Aegean Sea over here. This is Aegean Sea. And here we have Sea of Marmara, between Aegean Sea and Sea of Marmara. We have this as particular port where the Indian seafarers are trapped, which is Chornomorsk, right? So remember, we have the important cities like Kherson, we have Mariupol, we have Sevastopol, important cities. Why? Because there can be a particular question which basically asks you to arrange cities from north to south. So for that, this place is important. We have the Strait of Kerch between Sea of Azov and Black Sea. We have Bosphorus Strait between Black Sea and Sea of Marmara. We have the Strait of Dardanelles between the Sea of Marmara and the Aegean Sea. And these are the adjoining countries. Do remember, can be asked in the prelims. That's all from my side. I hope you really enjoyed the discussion. All the very best to all the serious aspirants out there. Take care.